Nirvana didn't kill these bands killed themselves. Nirvana just showed up, found the body, and got all the credit. Sold out arenas, multi-platinum albums. Enough hairspray to ignite a small country. All thrown away because of ego, bad timing, and in one case, a cartoon nerd who liked milk. 5 legends. 5 self-inflicted disasters. Let's go. In the mid-80s, Ratt is untouchable. Their album Out of the Cellar goes platinum. Round and Round is on the radio every 5 minutes, and honestly good for them, because that riff slaps. They are the kings of the Sunset Strip. They have the girls, they have the cars, they have the drugs, especially the drugs. But here's what most people get wrong about why Ratt fell apart. Go ask any washed-up hair metal guy why his band failed in the 90s, and he'll give you one word: grunge. They all blame Nirvana. All of them. Like Nirvana was some kind of musical hitman hired specifically to ruin their careers. But Ratt's own singer, Stephen Pearcy, has a different theory. And he's probably the only one in this entire video who's actually right about something. Stephen says grunge didn't kill Ratt. He says the music industry killed Ratt. Because after Ratt got famous, every label in LA wanted their own Ratt, so they signed every band that looked like them. And suddenly, you didn't have 5 hair metal bands, you had 500. Steven called them mini Ratts and mini Motleys. The market was completely saturated. You'd turn on MTV and it was just an endless parade of guys with teased hair, spandex, lace, high kicks, and the exact same guitar solo for hours. Every day. It got boring. Fans didn't fall in love with grunge because it was revolutionary. They fell in love with it because they were physically nauseous from consuming too much candy. They needed a vegetable. And Nirvana was a very loud, very depressing vegetable. Oh, and also, inside the band, their guitarist, Robin Crosby, had developed a full-blown heroin addiction and could barely hold a pick. So between the market implosion and their lead guitarist essentially becoming a ghost, Ratt imploded. Steven quit in 1992. The band kept releasing albums nobody bought. They became just another product on a shelf full of identical products. And nothing kills a rock star faster than being boring. Next up, a band that had everything going for it. Smash hits, arena tours, a loyal fan base, and then one guy decided the music was just too good, too popular, too embarrassing. So, he quit at the worst possible time. You know, the final countdown. Of course you do. It's the song they play at every hockey game, every magic show, every moment that needs to feel vaguely epic. The synth riff is basically the national anthem of 1986. The band behind it is Sweden's Europe. And in 1986, they are absolutely printing money. Arenas. Millions of dollars. The dream. They have all of it. But not everyone is happy. Specifically, guitarist John Norum. A guy who considers himself a serious musician. He's into heavy blues rock. The real stuff. And here he is. World famous for a keyboard riff that sounds like a toy space laser. He doesn't just dislike it. He despises it. He thinks the final countdown is commercial garbage, and every time it plays, a little piece of his soul evaporates. And then, management makes it worse. Because it's the 80s and image is everything, they start making the band do TV appearances where they don't even play their instruments. They just stand there, miming along while the track runs. Pure theater. Pure cheese. For John Norum, this is the last straw. So right in the middle of their biggest tour, the moment they're earning more money than they will ever earn again in their lives, John Norum quits, packs his guitar, and walks away. Because he's just fed up with the cheese factor. The band replaces him and keeps going for a while. But then 1991 happens, grunge arrives, and Europe walks into a recording studio and makes a polished, expensive, big-budget rock album called Prisoners in Paradise, aimed directly at a world that has already decided it hates polished, expensive, big-budget rock albums. It doesn't chart in the US, not even a little. And on New Year's Eve, 1991, they play a show at the Tokyo Dome called, and I kid you not, Final Countdown 91. They probably thought it was a clever name for a concert. It was a prophecy. The year flipped to 1992. The band broke up. The countdown hit 0, and there was nothing left. They went from the biggest synth riff on the planet to unemployed in Tokyo in under 5 years. John Norum, meanwhile, went off to pursue his dream of serious blues rock. Let's all wish him well. But at least Europe's guys were fighting over music. The next band was fighting over everything else, including, eventually, each other's faces. If you liked 80s metal, you know Dokken. They had the hits, they had the look, they were huge, and they had one fatal flaw. The two most important members of the band hated each other's guts with a passion that most people reserve for ex-spouses. On one side, singer Don Dokken. On the other, guitarist George Lynch. This wasn't creative tension. This was open warfare every single day for years. By the late 80s, Don is dealing with serious anxiety issues. He's self-medicating with pills and alcohol just to get through shows. And in his head, all of this is George's fault. Every headache, every bad night, every bad review, George Lynch did this to him. George, for his part, thinks Don is a control-obsessed egomaniac who wants to run everything. Which, based on what happens next, might not be entirely wrong. They finish a tour, and Don calls a meeting. Management, record execs, from Elektra, the whole band in one room. And Don drops the hammer. He cannot continue to work with George Lynch. It's over. Now here's where it gets genuinely insane. According to George Lynch, Don didn't just break up the band. He walked into that meeting and announced that he was taking the band name, taking the record deal, and the rest of them could consider themselves fired, unless they'd like to audition to be his paid employees. Imagine being in a band with someone for years, building something together, and the guy looks you in the eye and says, "This is mine now. You can apply for a job if you want." George, the bassist, and the drummer get a lawyer and sue. And here is where the justice system delivers its most beautiful absurdity. The judge rules that Don Dokken cannot use the name Dokken, his own last name, legally banned from it, for 5 years. The man had to go out and try to build a career without being allowed to tell anyone who he was. He later admitted it devastated him, and honestly, it should have. Because while they were all in court pointing fingers at each other, their window to be megastars quietly closed and locked behind them, they eventually tried to reunite. Time heals all wounds, right? Wrong again. They got back together, and almost immediately the fight started. At one point, mid-attempt at reconciliation, George Lynch punched Don Dokken in the face. Don picked up his things and went home. And that is the reason Dokken never became Van Halen. Too busy throwing punches instead of throwing horns. Slaughter didn't destroy themselves through ego or addiction or courtroom drama. They got destroyed by something arguably worse: timing. Pure, merciless, indifferent timing. They formed in the late 80s and one of the last big glam metal bands to get signed, rising from the ashes of Vinnie Vincent's group after Vinnie Vincent got himself fired from his own band, which is a level of chaos we don't have time for today. Their debut does well. Things look promising. And then in April 1992, they released their second album, The Wildlife. April 1992. Let that sink in. This is roughly 6 months after Nevermind came out and rearranged everyone's brain chemistry. And yet, here's the surprising part. The album actually does okay. It hits number 8 on the charts, goes gold. Against all odds, Slaughter is surviving the apocalypse. But survival isn't the same as thriving. No top 40 hits means no radio play. No radio play means MTV isn't calling. And MTV in 1992 has already moved on. Pearl Jam is playing. Nirvana is playing. Nobody is looking for the spandex shelf anymore. Then the universe decides it hasn't been cruel enough. In 1993, their guitarist Tim Kelly gets arrested. Not for something glamorous, but for drug trafficking. Serious charges. And while that's unfolding, bassist Dana Strum gets into a motorcycle accident and injures his playing hand. Now he can't play bass. The band is paralyzed. Can't tour and can't record. They finally get a third album ready by early 94, and then their record label, Chrysalis Records, gets swallowed by EMI. New owners look at the roster, see a hair metal band in 1994 with active legal problems and a guitarist under arrest, and cut them loose. They try again in 1997. A new album called Revolution, a new sound, a little more psychedelic, a little more grounded. Nobody buys it. Nobody cares. The moment has passed. And then, in 1998, Tim Kelly is driving through the Arizona desert and dies in a car accident. Just like that, it's over. Mark Slaughter later insisted it was industry executives who killed the music, that it was a conspiracy from the top. Maybe. Or maybe they showed up late, got hit by a streak of genuinely terrible luck, and then got hit by something that no amount of talent or persistence could survive. Sometimes it's not incompetence. Sometimes it's just the universe saying no. Let's talk about Winger, and let's be clear about something from the start. Winger was genuinely, legitimately talented. Lead singer Kip Winger had studied classical music. He'd done ballet. He took the craft seriously in a genre that largely treated craft as a funny word. He was also a certified heartthrob, on the covers of magazines, adored by fans, the whole thing. By any reasonable measure, Winger had the best shot of any glam metal band at surviving the 90s on pure musical merit. And then, Beavis and Butthead happened. If you didn't watch MTV in the early 90s, here's what you need to understand. Beavis and Butthead wasn't just a cartoon. It was a cultural arbitration system. If Beavis and Butthead said something was cool, it was cool. If they said it sucked, it was dead. Millions of kids watched this show every week and quietly recalibrated their entire taste in music based on what two animated morons thought. Beavis wore a Metallica shirt. Butthead wore an AC/DC shirt. Cool bands. Loud bands. Real bands. And then there was Stuart, the neighbor kid. Stuart was a wimp, a nerd, a try-hard with no social skills who really, really liked drinking milk. The human embodiment of uncool. Creator Mike Judge needed Stuart to wear a band shirt too. He wanted a band that represented everything wussy. The anti-Metallica. He tried a few names, tested a few logos on the drawing. The Winger logo just looked the funniest. That's it. That's the whole reason. Aesthetic compatibility between a cartoon nerd and a rock logo. And with that completely random creative decision, Kip Winger's career was detonated. Every week, millions of kids watched The Biggest Loser on television wearing a Winger shirt. The association burrowed into their subconscious. Liking Winger meant you were Stuart, and nobody wanted to be Stuart. The show was relentless. They mocked Winger's videos. They called them wusses on a loop. Kip Winger later said it was the one thing he genuinely could not laugh off. He had Metallica's Lars Ulrich literally throwing darts at a poster of his face, and he said even that wasn't as bad as the Stuart t-shirt. The grunge wave came and washed away the rest of the glam scene. But Winger wasn't just washed away. They were laughed out of the room first. In 2011, when MTV revived Beavis and Butthead for new episodes, they actually called Kip Winger and asked permission to use the logo on the shirt again. Kip noted, with magnificent understatement, that they hadn't asked his permission the first time. This time he said yes. He figured he might as well get paid for being the punchline. So now, every time Stuart appears on screen in his Winger shirt, Kip Winger gets a check. It's not exactly the rock star legacy he had in mind, but honestly, it's a better ending than most of the people on this list got. So there you have it. 5 bands, 5 completely different ways to squander everything. One guitarist who quit because he hated being successful. One band too busy suing each other to notice they were missing their moment. One singer who flooded his own market until nobody cared anymore. One band destroyed by a relentless streak of genuine bad luck. And one band taken down by a single cartoon shirt on a fictional nerd who liked milk. Nirvana didn't kill these bands. Grunge didn't kill these bands. These bands handed someone else the gun, pointed it at themselves, and said, "Here, do the honors." The 80s didn't end. They just stopped being able to get out of their own way. If you made it this far, you're one of us. Hit like, subscribe, and come back next time. We've got more legends and more self-inflicted catastrophes where these came from.
What's your point of view?